Good morning. It's good to see everybody. So my name is Jeff Wolpov. I am one of the founders of what was Port Logistics Group, became Whiplash, and is now Ryder e-commerce by Whiplash. For those of you that don't know Ryder, it's a $12.5 billion, 90-year-old public company. It's a supply chain services company as well as a truck leasing and maintenance company. For the first time in 90 years, the supply chain services aspect of Ryder has actually become bigger than the truck leasing and maintenance aspect. And within our supply chain offering, it's everything you would expect from a large-scale supply chain company. So there's automotive, aerospace, tech, retail, big and bulky last-mile delivery, dedicated transportation, and then my group runs the Ryder e-commerce and omni-channel division. Very pleased to be here today with a good friend, former customer, Heath Golden from Marquee Brands.
Thanks, Jeff. I knew you back when we were the same height.
Yes.
You left out Jeffco, your family business that became Port Logistics. Great to be here.
For me, I've only really had one job in my entire career. So I've been doing supply chain logistics for over 30 years. What we really want to talk about today is change and evolution, because change always happened, but today it's happening much faster. And so what I hope will resonate with you guys is when you start to think about the power of a brand and the retailer's expectations and the consumer's expectation and how the supply chain has evolved. And my business is just a perfect example of that. Just really briefly, we started working for major brands, Jones, Kellwood, Liz Claiborne, Perry Ellis, a lot of which aren't even here today, shipping into brick and mortar retail. And we realized fairly early on that that kind of sucked because the brand didn't necessarily control the retail experience or the consumer experience. And so we evolved and we went into retail, big Macy's, Bed Bath & Beyond, Williams-Sonoma, Best Buy, Ross Stores, a bunch of big retail brands. And then we realized that we made a mistake, that it's not a supply chain, but it's a demand chain. And in about 2014, we then took a big step where about 4% of our business, one customer, was e-com. And we made a big step to jump into the e-com world, the D2C world. And today, our business is about 54% e-com. And what we've realized is that it's truly omni-channel today. And our definition is just a little bit different. It's really, how do you get the goods to the consumer any way the consumer wants to buy them? And so that's what we really perfected. And what's really important, and what I hope kind of hits home today, is change is hard. And change, what's important to change is you really got to surround yourself with great people, and you got to hold everybody accountable to accepting that change. Because otherwise you kind of revert back to what you knew. But if you're able to change, it's really transformative. And so Heath, it's kind of a good segue into you from going to an attorney to running a sweater business to running now a consolidated business of brands. Talk a little bit about your evolution.
Yeah, I accidentally went to law school. I was fortunate enough to do well, which I fell into this big law firm trap and advised large public companies on M&A and private equity funds, like the financial sponsor I now have at Marquee Brands. We're owned by two funds managed by Neuberger Berman. But what I most enjoyed about being a lawyer was hearing the stories of CEOs as they evolved their companies, took them public, and then managed in the public markets. Made me want to be a CEO, so I had the opportunity to go in a very naive way to what I thought was a fashion company. It turned out to be a garment business called Hampshire Group, which was the largest sweater company in North America at the time in 2005. That's where I had the good fortune to meet you, be your customer. You were great then. I'm sure even better now. And that's where I learned about branding. So we were a professional licensee. We licensed brands like Levi's and Dockers and Calvin Klein and Tommy Hilfiger in the sweater business, which got increasingly difficult as margins got compressed and things like private brands grew and e-commerce started to be a thing. So realized that I need to evolve from there. Went on to run the Western Hemisphere for a company called Bendon, where we created the Heidi Klum brand, which for a 2-year flash in the pan moment was a massive thing at Macy's. Learned more about branding. Then learned about transformation when I joined a company called Randa, which happens to be in this building. I joined when it was a $400 or so million business. I left 6.5 years later, and we had grown it well over $1 billion at much higher profitability. And we did that by buying heritage brands like Hager, becoming the largest non-denim pant brand in North America. And that's where I learned about collaboration, something I think is so important, I'm sure, for this audience. And this idea of disaggregation, which you've had to go through on the other side and sort of learn about, well, maybe my customer should be somebody different. I think today, to be successful, meet our profit goals, the world is about doing what you can do best and partner with others who do what they do best. So today, I'm the president of Marquee Brands. We're a brand management company. Others out there, like Authentic Brands Group, the larger version of us that you might be more familiar with, we buy the intellectual property, primarily the trademarks, of heritage brands that we believe have a great core and are scalable by category and by geography. We invest in the marketing of those brands, strengthen the DNA, find best-in-class partners around the world, and grow those brands. BCBG, Bruno Magli, Ben Sherman, Motherhood Maternity, or just a handful of our brands. It's a fantastic model. We only have 140-ish employees, but yet drive $3.5 billion of retail sales by finding the best-in-class partners, whether it's a licensee, a retail partner. And then we have to figure out the right model, because I agree. I've been talking about the importance of omnichannel even when everyone thought all that mattered was DTC. DTC, as many of you know, is hard and often unprofitable. I really fundamentally believe you look at it from how do I deliver the product, I look at it from how do I have my product everywhere the consumer might be thinking about it, so that when they make the purchase decision, they're choosing mine, because I make my money in a royalty. So I need sales, and then I make a percent of that sale.
Sure. When you think about the different channels, right? Because I'm sure there's a lot of startup brands here. I'm sure there's a lot of emerging brands here. There's certainly a lot of vendors here that support that ecosystem. So when you start to think about this kind of brand, what's important? How do you differentiate yourself? How do you set yourself apart? When you look for a brand, what really resonates with the consumer? And then how do you continue to grow that brand?
First and foremost, you have to have great product, right? A great product at the best price value. Table stakes, Macy's can do that in a private brand. So how do you distinguish yourself? I think community is always incredibly important. One of our brands is Antisocial Social Club, which if you're 15 to 25 years old, might be your product. I mean, and it's all about community. We do all of our sales in that brand in 28 minutes a year. So 4 drops where the site's open for 7 minutes, and then a weekly drop. And it's a very large, very profitable business. 28 minutes a year is the entire business. So finding interesting and different business models, calls to action, and community. And collaborations today, super, super important. This weekend, ASSC has a collaboration with UFC, which we're already out there hyping up. We think it'll be really far exceed our plan. We're excited about it. So it's finding interesting, innovative ways to talk about it and just deepen that connection. And I think it's about talking to the people who resonate the most so that you get an acceptable ROI. We're much more focused on sort of mid and bottom funnel as opposed to spending lots of money trying to drive more people into the funnel.
Sure. And if I'm correct, you're an Emmy Award winner. So how important is content to being able to backstop that brand?
I wish I could claim to be the Emmy Award winner. I have several people on my team who are now Emmy winners. We were nominated for 5 Emmys. So one of the parts of our secret, maybe now not so secret sauce, is profitable brand marketing, which is called content generation. So we own the Martha Stewart brand, and we own the Emerald Lagasse brand. We have a partnership with Roku where we deliver under Martha 39 episodes a year, under Emerald 39 episodes a year, plus they have a massive library of archived shows. So we deliver that content profitably. Consumers watch it. Martha's the #1 performing lifestyle brand on the Roku platform. Roku is growing around the world, which is helping take our brands globally and create more interest. You'll see us announce something very shortly in the Middle East with Martha. And that comes from delivering this content where we stood up a media team. So we produce these shows. I was at her estate yesterday filming a gardening show. And that's profitable brand marketing, which is not many people can say that they get to do that. And content is super important. You'll see us go back into print by the spring with Martha Stewart Living. You can, turns out, do magazines profitably again now too. And that just deepens the connection with everyone, for our partners, for our consumers.
So getting back to omnichannel, you know, everybody's read about the demise of retail. Retail's not dead. It's very difficult to have one channel, whether you're just D2C or whether you're just retail. For our customers, we're finding the D2C customers are going to open a kiosk. They're going to create a wholesale business. They may do a pop-up store. They may open up their own retail stores. If you're a B2B business, you may have your own URL. You may have your own .com business. You may even create a wholesale business. For the brands that you support with the licensors that you have, how do you go? Where are you seeing the trend? Where are people going from a retail customer experience perspective?
We have 190 or so partners around the world. They span the gamut in their digital prowess. So one other part of our secret sauce is we have a team heavily populated with ex-Amazonians, where we supplement their efforts. We train them, we teach them about the marketplaces around the world. We help them stand up direct and own sites around the world. We did our own pivot. We started building our own sites, but found that often could put us in conflict with our retail partners and our licensees. We don't want to do that. We want to be the world's best licensor. So now we work with them to figure out the best go-to-market strategy to help everyone drive omnichannel. Something we're increasingly doing is partnering with retailers, because fulfillment, sorry, Jeff, but fulfillment is too expensive. We should lower your rates. So one thing we're very focused on, especially in a brand like Dakine, where Dakine stands for snowboarding, mountain biking, windsurfing, things that are hard, right? We want to teach through content how to do that, inspire you to go learn windsurfing. And to do that, we'd much rather you go into Dick's and convert there. And we think that's really adding value by us as a licensor. So we're pivoting toward these content-rich sites where you can transact in a relatively agnostic way from us. Drop ship with our partners is our preferred model. We want to be asset light, and partner with the retailers to close that loop on data. We'll even incentivize it. BCBG, I don't want my daughter ordering 12 potential prom dresses, returning 11, or heaven forbid 12. I'd much rather say these are all in stock at Bloomingdale's or Macy's. Here's a $10 coupon, go there. We'll fund that coupon just to close that loop. And we have a whole data analytics team standing up proprietary databases to sort of mine that and deliver high margin incremental traffic to retail partners around the world.
When you think about the evolution or the change of your business, if you and I were going to talk, 10 years ago when we were shipping sweaters for you, and say that your biggest driver is going to be content that you're going to be creating shows for Roku that's going to create demand for your brand, right? And then all of a sudden you saw how that's evolved to this point. Where do you see the next 5, 10 years going? How do you continue to drive demand for the brands that you own?
My head would have been spinning if you said that to me, and I said, how am I supposed to learn about all of that? I think, again, it's about partnering, doing what you do best, and collaborating with lots of vendors here, including Whiplash, who do what they do best. Content matters. It is propelling our sales. We will go deeper into content. You'll see us announce something with Scott's Miracle-Gro shortly, right? So what do you need to garden? Scott's Miracle-Gro products. Who's more important to gardening than Scott's Miracle-Gro? Martha, right? So figuring out things like that really drive that demand cycle. We may even integrate something with the Weather Channel into that, right? So it's just thinking about interesting ways where everyone can participate, everyone can make money, and you can really be a value add to the consumer's life.
Yeah, the power of the partnership, the power of the network. So you've grown a lot, you've evolved, you've been entrepreneurial, you've worked at a bigger business. What advice do you have for brands that are either startup or emerging brands that are trying to gain traction? You're an acquirer of brands. What are you looking for in a brand?
So I think most relevant to that question for this audience is I was an early, I guess still am, but was ran a heavily focused on early stage investing and figuring out what's next. And we had sort of a family office fund, made several investments. The two themes that I learned from sitting on those boards and watching these companies through their various financing rounds and exits, some successful, some not, was just time doesn't wait for anybody. I think sort of two specific companies just where founders were a bit too passive, didn't run fast enough, thought that they had something sort of super secret that was sort of a moat and just wasn't, because there's lots of other smart people out there with great ideas. And the other theme is it almost always takes more money than you think. So ensuring that you have the necessary money, with debt, equity, both, to execute on the plan and then some. Those two really seem to be where anyone falls down. It seems to be because at least one of those two things aren't fully thought through. As far as what we're acquiring, I mean, it's all about the brand. I think the brand DNA matters. You can't think enough about that when you're conceiving of your business and then tending to it as if you're gardening as you're going along and growing. We are, because of our business model, we tend to buy businesses that have some heritage and some scale. We're not, very unlikely to see us buy an early stage business. But hopefully you all graduate to be acquisition targets for us.
Yeah, and part of your job is to take care of the brand, to nurture it, to create demand. The other part is running your business. And so once you have this startup or this emerging brand and you become an enterprise brand, you then need to build a sustainable business. And we're faced with rising costs, rising rents, rising labor, tough to find a building, tough to find labor. What are you thinking about as a president of a business, not just protecting the brand, but what are you doing now to weather some of these economic headwinds that we're facing?
Well, it's a challenge. Every day is a challenge. 190 partners. They're like children, strengths, weaknesses. So I'd say we have to be out there and have our pulse on the market, right? I wake up super early. I'm reading analyst research, WWD, Business Fashion from all around the world. We're a global business. There's no holidays in what we do. And traveling. I'm constantly meeting with retailers around the world. And then just working with our partners. I spend most of my day being a coach. From my experience and what I've gained over the years, talking to the partners about how I think what they need to do. It can be frustrating as a former operator because you want to just be able to walk into a room and say, do this, do that. That's not how it works in our business model. But look, it's studying, it's networking, it's talking to your consumer, it's talking to your omni-channel partners, understanding what the needs are, and really focusing on something I learned as a lawyer, which is it's not about getting the last nickel for your client. It's about finding that happy place in the middle where it works for everybody. So that's what we focus on in our business and with our licensee and retail partners.
Talk a little bit about the power and the importance of your team. Surrounding yourselves with true professionals that are better at what they do than you are, that collectively 1 + 1 could equal 5.
Yeah, so we own 17 brands, $3.5 billion of retail sales. I'm one person. Again, I'll sort of come back to that coaching analogy. Nothing without the team and having incredible partners, employees, colleagues, associates. I was just on holiday last week and I read the Reed Hastings book. I'm forgetting the name. I highly recommend it. I loved it. It's going to become a book club reading for our senior leadership team. But it's the idea of having stars, avoiding bloat, overcompensating your stars, and having an agile, nimble culture. Every day we deal with something different because we're in every country around the world. And you can just let sort of this creep happen where you lose your nimbleness and you can't react quickly enough. So I really focus every day on how can I scale, how can I coach people, how can I make them better, And do we have the best people on our team to be as successful as we want?
Well, that's great. So, kind of some quick takeaways, and we're running out of time. It certainly embrace the change. Don't be scared of change. Lean into it. If you're not growing, you're dying. And so growth could be anything. It could not just be the top line. If you think about a tree, it's the roots. It's going wide. It's going tall. But investing in yourself, investing in your people, investing in your business, and continuing to grow. Heath,
Thanks, Jeff.
thank you for joining.